Hello everyone, Hi everyone, I'd like to welcome you to case problem number 4. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you open up the file that indicates the Crystal Screen Movie Theater scheduling. So once you've opened up the file, you want to come to the documentation tab, and in cell B3 you want to enter your name, and in B4 you want to enter the date. So now we're going to move on to step 3, and you want to click on schedule. And what we're going to do is we're going to fill in some information here, and then we're going to run solver that will come up with an automatic way of setting up a schedule for the movie theater workers. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that D5 through J19 is a 0. So select those cells, type 0, and then control enter, and everything will be populated with a 0. The next thing that we want to do is we want to calculate the total number of shifts. To do that, we're going to sum up each of the rows. So we'll begin with equals sum parenthesis and select cell D5 through J5, close parenthesis, and then you can click and drag that formula down. And the total hours, we're going to assume that the hours worked are 8 hours. So the shifts times 8 is going to be our formula. So in cell L5, we're going to type in L, select cell K5 times 8, enter. And then you're going to click and drag that down so that the formula carries through. The ushers required in step 6 indicate that Monday through Friday, there are 8 ushers required to work Monday through Friday, 11 hours on Saturday, and 10 hours on Sunday. The ushers that are scheduled to work that day will come from the sum of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and so forth. So in cell D22, we want to equal sum, parenthesis, and we want to make sure that we select everything for Monday, close parenthesis, enter, and we want to click and drag that formula so it carries all the way through. And the difference will be ushers scheduled minus the ushers required. So we're going to type in an equal sign and select ushers scheduled minus ushers required, and enter, and we're going to click and drag to carry that formula through. And the total shortfall in shifts will be the sum of the difference in row 23. So we're going to equal sum, and we're going to select D23 through J23. So right now everything is a negative because we don't have any numbers filled in the main area of scheduling. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to create a solver, and we're going to indicate what our goal is, what our variables are, and if we have any constraints. So up on the formula, up on the ribbon bar, you're going to select data, select solver, and the solve parameters dialog will appear. Set objective, and that's the goal. What do you want your goal to be? So for this case, we want the total shortfall in shifts to be 0. We don't want to have any shortfalls. So my objective is cell D25, and I want that to become a value of 0, which is already indicated. How I want to get there is by changing some variables in the scheduling data area. So I want to change the variable values of D5 through J19. And now I want to add some constraints. So I'm going to come down to the subject to the constraints area, and I'm going to click add, and and then the Add Constraints dialog will appear. So the first constraint that I want to set up is by clicking the arrow, I want D5 through J19. Click the drop down arrow to be binary, and I'm going to click Add, and that means it'll indicate a 0 or a 1. The next thing that we want to do is we want to limit the total of hours that full-time employees can work to be less than or equal to 40. So my cell reference is going to be all of the full-time people, which is which is down to row 17 and across to Sunday. That's the data for all of the full-time employees. So we want to limit the total hours that full-time employees can work to be less than or equal to 40. So here are the total hours, and I want to select L5 through L17 because those are the full-time employees, as you can see here in column B. And I have the sign for less than or equal to 40 hours. And then I'm going to click Add. And the next thing that we want to do is limit the amount of hours that part-time workers can work to less than or equal to 24 hours. So I'm going to select the total hours of part-time employees, which are cells L18 and 19. I want it to be less than or equal to 24 hours. And I'm going to click Add. And then we want the difference of the ushers required and scheduled to equal 0. So I'm going to select D23 through J23, and using the drop down, now I want this to be equal to 0. And then I'm going to click Add. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to set constraints for anyone that cannot work as indicated in the notes column. So when it reads that someone cannot work on a particular day, we want to set that cell to 0. So for Margaret, she cannot work Wednesday through Saturday. So I'm going to select Wednesday through Saturday for Margaret, and I want to make that equal to 0 so that when Solver runs, it knows to make sure that that's a 0 in those areas. So we're going to do this for the rest of the notes area. We're going to click Add, and for Mary cannot work on a Wednesday, so we're going to select F8, and we want to make that equal to 0. Add. John cannot work on Thursday, and we're going to make that equal to 0. And Jerry can't work Monday through Friday. Select those cells, equal to 0. Add. Anita is unavailable the entire week, so we're going to select Monday through Sunday for Anita, and we're going to make that equal to 0. And add. Heather cannot work on Saturday, so we're going to select I14, make that equal to 0. And Deborah can't work on Friday, so we're going to set her Friday value to 0. And finally, Monica cannot work on Saturday, so we're going to set her Saturday date to be equal to 0. And then I'm going to click OK because I've entered in all of the constraints. So the next thing you want to do is you want to ensure that select a solving method is on evolutionary, and we're going to click on solve. And this is going to take a little while for it to process through all of the different variations, and by changing this and changing that, it's also going to take into consideration the days that we indicated someone couldn't work to come up with a solution and a schedule to ensure that the ushers scheduled and required equals 0 and that there is 0 shortfall in the schedule. And the other thing that it's going to do is it's going to make sure that full-time employees' total hours do not exceed 40, and it's going to ensure that part-time employees do not exceed 24 hours. So now we have our solver results, and we're going to click OK. So now if you look at your chart, you can see here the total number of shifts that are required, the total number of hours, and notice that anyone who is a full-time employee, there isn't anything greater than 40, and Anita, who cannot work this week, is a 0. And also note that for Margaret, she can't work Wednesday through Saturday, so those days are set at a 0. And the Wednesday constraint that we put in for Mary, the Thursday constraint we put in for John is at 0, Monday through Friday. For Jerry and Anita, who can't work at all, and all of the other constraints that we put into Solver have created this schedule for the employees. And our goal of making the total shortfall in shifts is 0. So now we have a schedule for the movie theater employees. So for step 12, what we want to do is we want to see if we changed Sunday to 11, what would the schedule look like, or is that even possible? So the first thing you want to do is go into cell J21 and you want to type in 11. And then we need to set these values, D5 through J19, to 0. So select those cells, click on your keyboard 0, and then Control Enter to make all of the zeros appear. And we're going to be on the Data tab, and now we're going to select Solver again. All of our constraints and everything has been already input by us in the previous step, so we're going to click on Solve to see what will happen if we say we need 11 ushers required on Sunday. And again, we're getting this hourglass because in the background, Solver is going through all of the different variations to see if it can come up with a solution for us. And then once we find out the solution, or if there is no solution, the instructions are to type in an explanation in A21. So as you can see, Solver could not find a feasible solution, which means if you have 11 employees that you need on Sunday, based on the constraints that we put in, it's not possible. Solver was unable to return any results. So we're going to click OK. And then we're going to come over to A21, and you need to type in some sort of an explanation as to why it cannot be done. So changing shifts to 11 hours on Sunday is not a feasible solution given the constraints indicated, or something like that. So finally, what we want to do is we want to change our chart back to the original where Sunday was at 10 shifts, 10 ushers required. So we want to select cell J21, type in a 10, and then we want to select D5 through J19. We want to type 0, Control Enter to set those values back to 0. And then from the data ribbon, we want to select Solver, make sure evolutionary is indicated, and we want to select Solve. And again, Solver is going to be going through all of the possible iterations, and it will then return the values that we originally had in step 11. And the final instructions are for you to then save this file and submit it. So we're just going to wait here one more second with our hourglass just to make sure that everything goes back to what it was before when we had 10 ushers required on Sunday, and make sure that the constraints Wednesday through Saturday, click OK once it's resolved, are set at 0, and this is set at 0 for Wednesday, 0 for Thursday, can't work on Saturday, so forth and so on. Full-time employee hours do not exceed 40, part-time employees do not exceed 24, and our goal of having a shortfall in shifts is at 0, which is what we had wanted. So that concludes this session. Good luck, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.